INFJs are known for being mysterious, deep, and almost impossible to fully understand. But here's what most people don't realize. When an INFJ cares about you, they don't always trust right away. Instead, they test you, quietly, strategically, and without ever admitting it. These tests aren't about games or manipulation. They're about protection. Because to an INFJ, giving someone access to their inner world is the most dangerous risk of all. So, what exactly do INFJs do when they're secretly testing you? And how can you recognize these subtle signs before you fail them without even knowing? Stick around because in this video, we're going to uncover the hidden ways INFJs measure your loyalty, your honesty, and your intentions. Once you understand these, you'll see exactly why they pull back sometimes, why they act differently, and why earning their trust feels like a slow, silent process. If you're fascinated by the INFJ mind and want to see the world the way they do, make sure you subscribe to Brainy One, the only channel where we dive this deeply into INFJ psychology. And don't forget to hit the bell so you never miss when we reveal the hidden layers of the rarest personality type. They go quiet to watch your reaction. When an INFJ suddenly goes quiet, it's almost never random. Silence for them isn't just absence of words. It's a test, a signal, and sometimes even a shield. You might notice the shift when their usual thoughtful responses are replaced by a stillness that feels heavy, almost deliberate. To most people, silence is uncomfortable, something they rush to fill with small talk or explanations. But to an INFJ, silence is a tool. It's how they step back, observe, and gauge the authenticity of the connection. If you've ever experienced this with an INFJ, understand that their quiet is rarely about disinterest. It's about clarity. They're watching closely to see how you react when they pull away. Do you panic, over-explain, or push harder to get their attention? Do you get defensive and accuse them of being distant? Or do you show patience, giving them the breathing room they need while still holding space for them to return? Your reaction tells them everything about who you are and what kind of presence you bring into their life. Here's what many people don't realize. INFJs are constantly reading energy. When they go quiet, they're not shutting you out without reason. They're tuning into your response. If you pressure them during this silence, they'll quietly file it away as a sign that you can't handle their depth. But if you respect their pause, if you allow the silence without demanding an explanation, you prove that you're someone who can meet them on their terms. This quiet test is subtle, but it's powerful. It separates those who crave attention for themselves from those who genuinely value connection. Because for an INFJ, true closeness doesn't come from constant chatter. It comes from the comfort of knowing they can be silent around you without fear of losing your interest or love. So when an INFJ withdraws into silence, don't rush to fix it. Notice it, respect it, let them see that you're grounded enough not to chase yet present enough to care. Because in their world, how you respond to their quiet often reveals far more than how you respond to their words. They share something small but personal. When an INFJ shares something with you, even if it seems small or insignificant on the surface, it's rarely just casual. For them, every personal detail they reveal is intentional, carefully chosen, and carries more weight than it appears. What may sound like a random confession, a subtle insecurity, or a quiet mention of something they usually keep to themselves is actually a test. It's their way of placing a piece of their trust in your hands, not to overwhelm you, but to see how you treat it. INFJs are naturally private people. They guard their inner world fiercely because they know how rare genuine understanding truly is. So when they reveal something small, it's never just small. Maybe they admit to a fear they don't usually talk about, a quirky habit, or a past experience that shaped them. To you, it may feel like a minor disclosure, but to them, it's a delicate opening, a doorway into the parts of themselves they rarely let others see. How you respond matters more than you realize. If you laugh it off, dismiss it, or change the subject quickly, they'll feel the sting of being unseen. If you share it with someone else, even in passing, they'll instantly categorize you as unsafe. And if you ever weaponize it against them in an argument, the damage is permanent. They'll quietly withdraw, and the bond will never return to its original depth. On the other hand, if you handle that small disclosure with care, if you listen without judgment, if you validate without making them feel exposed, you pass a test most people fail. You show them that you're not just another person who craves access to their mind and heart, but someone who can hold it with respect. That's how INFJs decide who gets closer and who stays at the surface. What looks like a small secret is really a key. If you misuse it, the door closes forever. If you treat it with gentleness, it opens wider. And with INFJs, every step deeper is a privilege, one they don't grant lightly. They observe how you treat others. When you're around an INFJ, it's not just about how you treat them. They're paying close attention to how you interact with everyone else. The people who can't offer you anything, the ones you don't have to impress, the strangers who pass through your day. To an INFJ, the truest measure of someone's character is revealed in those small, unguarded moments when you think no one is watching. But INFJs are always watching. They'll notice the tone you use with a waiter, the way you speak to your friends, or how you react when someone makes a mistake. Do you show kindness, or do you let impatience slip out? Do you treat people with respect only when it benefits you, or is it part of who you are? For the INFJ, these little interactions say far more than anything you could tell them directly. Words can be rehearsed, but behavior, especially in ordinary moments, doesn't lie. This quiet observation is one of the ways INFJs test people without them realizing. You may think you're making a good impression by being polite or charming with them specifically, but if they see you turn around and belittle someone else, they'll register the contradiction instantly. They'll know you're putting on a mask, and once they sense hypocrisy, it's almost impossible to earn their trust back. On the flip side, when they see genuine consistency in you, when your kindness isn't selective, when you treat everyone with the same level of respect, that's when their guarded heart begins to soften. Because INFJs are deeply concerned with authenticity. They crave relationships built on truth, not appearances. They don't just want to know who you are with them, they want to know who you are when the world isn't watching. It's a quiet but powerful test, and it's one most people don't even realize they're taking. If you pass, the INFJ will see you as someone worth trusting, someone whose actions match their words. But if you fail, they won't argue, won't confront you. They'll simply take note and start pulling away. For an INFJ, character is never hidden. It's revealed in the smallest details, and they see it all. They give you space on purpose. One of the most misunderstood things about INFJs is their need for solitude. To outsiders, it can look like they're withdrawing, losing interest, or even becoming distant, but often their silence isn't about pulling away emotionally, it's deliberate. INFJs will purposely give you space as a way to see how you respond to their independence. This is one of their quiet tests. They want to know if you'll respect their boundaries or if you'll panic when they're not constantly available. To an INFJ, a healthy connection means both people can breathe freely without needing to control or cling to one another. So when they step back, they're not rejecting you, they're observing. Do you allow them to recharge without making them feel guilty? Or do you take their distance personally, demanding reassurance and attention to calm your own fears? What many people don't realize is that INFJs often crave closeness just as much as anyone else, but they can't function without their private time. Their solitude is how they process emotions, reflect, and restore their energy. If someone can't handle that, it signals to the INFJ that the relationship isn't sustainable, because to them, love built on control or constant pressure is not love at all. When they give you space and you don't push, when you let them come back on their own terms, that's when the INFJ feels safe. They see that you trust the bond enough to withstand silence. They see that you're secure enough not to panic in the gaps. And that security is incredibly attractive to them because it means you understand the way they're wired at their core. But if you respond by clinging, checking up on them obsessively, or trying to guilt them into constant availability, the INFJ will silently register that as a red flag. They'll sense the imbalance and retreat further, knowing that your connection is built more on fear than trust. So the next time an INFJ gives you space, don't assume the worst. They're not drifting away. They're watching how you handle their independence. If you respect it, you'll pass one of their most meaningful tests, and your relationship with them will deepen in a way that few people ever experience. They drop hints instead of direct questions. INFJs are rarely the type to come at you directly with blunt questions about your loyalty, your feelings, or your intentions. Instead, they prefer to communicate in subtler ways, through hints, side comments, or carefully chosen stories. It's not because they're afraid of confrontation, but because they want to see how tuned in you really are. For an INFJ, this is one of their secret tests. They might bring up a topic indirectly, like casually mentioning someone who broke their trust in the past or making a side remark about honesty in relationships. They won't look at you and demand, "Can I trust you?" Instead, they'll drop the hint and wait. If you catch it and engage thoughtfully, they notice. If you dismiss it, brush it off, or fail to pick up on it entirely, the INFJ quietly takes note. You're not fully in sync with them. This subtle approach is tied to how INFJs see the world. They're highly intuitive and they crave depth in their connections. To them, the way you respond to small, almost hidden signals reveals more about you than a direct Q&A ever could. Picking up on their hints shows that you're attentive, empathetic, and capable of reading between the lines, qualities INFJs value above almost everything else. On the other hand, ignoring their subtle cues can create distance. If they constantly have to spell things out for you, it drains their energy and makes them feel unseen. INFJs don't want to chase understanding. They want it to flow naturally, almost effortlessly. That's why this hint-dropping method is so important to them. It tells them whether you're really aligned with their inner world or just skating along the surface. When you notice their subtle signals, when you pause and say, "Wait, that seemed important, tell me more," the INFJ feels understood in a way very few people ever make them feel. That moment of recognition builds trust. It tells them you're paying attention, not just to their words, but to the spaces between them. And for an INFJ, that's where the real truth lives. So the next time an INFJ drops a small, almost throwaway comment, don't dismiss it. Lean in, ask about it. Show them you're listening to the hidden layers, because often the hints they leave behind are not random. They're the quiet keys to their heart. They test your consistency. With INFJs, trust isn't built on grand gestures or one-time promises. It's built on consistency, the slow, steady alignment of your words and actions over time. To them, reliability isn't optional. It's the foundation on which every meaningful relationship stands. That's why, when they're secretly testing you, one of their sharpest observations is whether you show up the same way day after day or whether you crumble under pressure. An INFJ will pay attention to the small patterns. Do you say you'll call but then disappear for days? Do you promise loyalty but behave differently when you're around others? Do you talk about honesty but twist the truth when it's convenient? These contradictions don't slip past an INFJ. They're cataloged silently, and over time, they form the INFJ's final judgment of your character. This test isn't about perfection. INFJs don't expect you to be flawless. What they do expect is that you remain true to your word, even when it's inconvenient, and that your actions mirror the values you claim to stand for. They see inconsistency as instability, and for them, instability is dangerous because it threatens the depth and trust they need to feel safe in a connection. When someone proves consistent, the INFJ gradually opens up more layers of themselves. They share deeper thoughts, reveal vulnerabilities, and allow you into their inner circle. But when they see a pattern of inconsistency, empty promises, sudden disappearances, hot and cold behavior, their trust dies quietly. And once it's gone, it almost never returns. This is why many people describe INFJs as all or nothing. Once you've shown them that your reliability can't be trusted, they mentally close the door. No confrontation, no explosion, just a silent withdrawal that's impossible to reverse. To pass this unspoken test, you don't need to be perfect. You need to be dependable. Show up when you say you will, mean the things you say, follow through even when no one is watching. Because for an INFJ, consistency isn't just a preference, it's proof of integrity. And integrity is the only currency that truly matters to them. They push boundaries softly. One of the ways INFJs secretly test people is by setting small boundaries and watching closely to see how you respond. It may be as subtle as saying, "I need some alone time tonight," or "Please don't share this with anyone." On the surface, these requests might not seem like much, but to an INFJ, they are quietly revealing because if you can't respect the little limits, they already know you won't respect the bigger ones that truly matter. INFJs are deeply protective of their inner world. They know how easily their trust and energy can be taken for granted. So boundaries become their way of separating those who are safe from those who are not. When they test you with these smaller boundaries, they're not being manipulative, they're being cautious. It's their way of asking, can I trust you with my space, my truth, and eventually my heart? The way you respond tells them everything. If you respect their space without guilt-tripping them, their trust in you grows. If you honor their privacy and don't use their words carelessly, they feel safe to open up more. But if you push back, ignore their needs, or try to override their boundaries, they take mental notes and they rarely forget. What makes this test even more powerful is that INFJs won't usually confront you directly when you cross a line. Instead, they'll pull back. They'll quietly create distance, showing you less of their inner world, sharing less of their emotions, and slowly fading into silence. From the outside, it may seem sudden, but to them, it's a natural consequence of your actions. Respecting an INFJ's boundaries isn't just about politeness, it's about trust, safety, and long-term connection. Those who pass this test often find that the INFJ becomes incredibly loyal, generous, and open. Those who fail, they rarely get a second chance. This is why so many people are shocked when an INFJ finally walks away. The truth is, the signs were always there, hidden in those soft, subtle boundary tests that most people never even realized they were failing. They reveal their shadow side slowly. One of the most secretive and subtle ways INFJs test people is by gradually revealing the less polished parts of themselves, the sides they normally keep hidden from the world. At first, an INFJ may come across as calm, kind, collected, and almost flawless in how they carry themselves. But that's only the surface. Deep down, they know no human being is perfect, and they refuse to let someone truly close to them believe in an illusion. So when they start showing you their flaws, their insecurities, or even their darker moods, it's not an accident, it's a test. An INFJ wants to know if you can handle all of them, not just the idealized version you may have built up in your head. Can you accept their sensitivity without dismissing it as weakness? Can you tolerate their occasional coldness or distance without making it all about yourself? Can you love them even when they're not endlessly patient, endlessly giving, or endlessly strong? These are the questions running silently through their mind. Revealing their shadow side is not about drama, it's about truth. INFJs are painfully aware that relationships built only on admiration for their light will eventually crumble. To them, the real test of love, friendship, or trust is whether someone can see their shadows and still stay. That's why they'll start small, maybe admitting to a fear, showing frustration they usually hide, or letting you see their anger when trust has been tested. Each reveal is deliberate, and your reaction determines whether they continue opening up or whether they shut the door. If you respond with empathy, patience, and understanding, you pass the test, and the bond with the INFJ deepens in ways few people ever experience. But if you judge them, mock them, or use their vulnerability against them, they'll remember it. They won't necessarily fight you about it, but the trust will start to erode. And once that trust is gone, INFJs rarely give it back. What most people don't realize is this: when an INFJ shows you their shadow, it's actually a sign of deep trust. It means you've already crossed their walls. But whether you stay inside or get locked out forever depends entirely on how you handle the side of them they rarely let the world see. They watch how you react to their silence. Silence is one of the most powerful tools an INFJ uses, not as a weapon, but as a filter. When an INFJ retreats into quietness, it's rarely random. It's their way of recharging, processing, and finding balance within a world that often feels too loud and overwhelming. But make no mistake, they are watching very closely how you respond to this silence. To them, your reaction reveals everything they need to know about your emotional maturity and whether you're truly capable of respecting who they are. If you take their silence personally, assuming it's rejection, punishment, or a lack of interest, the INFJ notices. If you push them, demand explanations, or try to break through their solitude, they register that too. In their eyes, that behavior shows insecurity and a lack of respect for boundaries. On the other hand, if you give them space, trust their need for withdrawal, and remain steady without pressure, you earn their deep respect. For INFJs, silence isn't the absence of connection, it's the test of whether the connection can survive without constant reassurance. The truth is, INFJs crave partners and friends who can stand strong in stillness. They want to know you won't panic if they go inward for a while, and that you won't interpret their solitude as abandonment. When you respect their silence, you prove you value them as they are, not just as the constant source of warmth and energy they often provide. And here's where most people fail the test. They confuse silence with distance, but INFJs see silence as intimacy. If they allow you to remain in their orbit while they're quiet, it means you're trusted. They don't let everyone that close during their vulnerable recharge periods, but if you demand noise, attention, or constant validation, you'll push them further away than you realize. So the next time an INFJ grows quiet, don't fill the silence with panic or assumptions. Let it breathe, let them breathe, because if you can pass this test, you'll discover one of the deepest truths about INFJs. Their silence isn't the end of connection, it's the beginning of a deeper one. They create emotional distance to measure your intentions. One of the most misunderstood INFJ behaviors is when they suddenly step back emotionally. To many people, it feels cold, confusing, or even cruel, but in reality, it's one of the deepest ways an INFJ tests the sincerity of your intentions. When an INFJ creates emotional distance, it's not because they've stopped caring, it's because they want to see if you care enough to bridge the gap without being asked. INFJs live in a world where they constantly give their time, their energy, their empathy, but this generosity often attracts people who only take and rarely give back. Over time, this leaves INFJs cautious, even guarded. So when they step back, they're really asking an unspoken question. Are you here for me, or just for what I provide? If you notice their distance but respond with patience, understanding, and effort, you pass the test. If you ignore it, pressure them, or walk away, the INFJ quietly registers the truth about where you stand. What makes this test so powerful is that it reveals intentions without words. If someone truly values an INFJ, they'll notice the subtle withdrawal and naturally step closer, offering reassurance, kindness, or presence without being prompted. But if someone is selfish or superficial, they won't even notice the distance until it's too late. To the INFJ, this silence speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. And here's the catch. INFJs rarely repeat this test. If they've measured your response once, they know what to expect in the future. If you fail, they won't argue or demand better treatment. They'll simply start detaching for good. It's a quiet sorting process designed to protect their energy from people who only want to take without giving. So when an INFJ creates emotional distance, don't panic or assume the connection is broken. See it for what it is, an invitation to prove your intentions. Because the truth is, INFJs don't want perfect people. They just want genuine ones. And if you can walk toward them while they step back, you'll have earned a place in their rare and sacred inner circle. At the end of the day, INFJs don't test people out of malice, they do it out of self-preservation. Their quiet evaluations aren't about playing games, they're about protecting their rare loyalty and depth from those who might waste it. If you've ever felt like an INFJ was watching closely, pulling back, or measuring your reactions, it wasn't to confuse you, it was to see if you were truly safe to let in. And once you pass these silent tests, you'll realize something powerful. Earning an INFJ's trust means you've gained one of the most loyal and profound connections you'll ever experience. Fail them, however, and they'll vanish without ever needing to explain why. So here's my question for you. Have you ever noticed an INFJ testing you, and did you pass or fail their test? Share your story in the comments, because your experience might resonate with others more than you think. If this breakdown helps you understand INFJs on a deeper level, hit that like button, subscribe to Brainy One for more content like this, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next insight. Remember, INFJs don't just want attention, they want truth. And if you're still here, it means you probably do too.